Hi, Joe. Nice to meet you. Steve Pillow.
I was really worried about the snow yesterday, and I said we could get dusty, and I know what that does to the northern Virginia area. So thank you for coming out. My name is Terry Willigan. I'm the Assistant Dean for Career Services for the School of Business, and we're very delighted that you're here. We have a lovely panel here for you, and first I have to thank Freedom Bank. We have the CEO of Freedom Bank here as well, and they are a sponsor for today's event, so I want you to all thank them all for their participation. They have left you all a nice bag, and they are talking about their internships. And so they have a lot of people here to network, so if you're interested in an internship, I strongly recommend finding somebody from Freedom Bank. We have a wonderful panel here, and I'm going to turn it over to Professor Pillow. He's going to moderate the panel. Keep in mind, they're not here to talk to us. They're here to talk to students. So make sure that you ask good questions. Don't be shy, and I'm going to turn the panel over. Oh, a quick thing, please make sure your phone's on silent. Disrupt the students and the panel. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Meet the Professionals with or Ask the Professionals for the finance area. Hopefully, I'll do a good job of asking these guys questions that bring on answers that will be helpful for you. So one of the first questions I always find to be helpful is to ask all of our panelists to just introduce yourselves to the students, and then also provide a brief description of your job, the area that you work in, and then any affiliation that you might have with George Mason. And we'll start with Joe and work our way down.
Okay, very good. Thank you and good morning. Delighted to be here both personally to try to share any insights with this esteemed group that we have here, but also professionally on behalf of Freedom Bank. Thank you for joining. And do have, by raise of hand, a number of colleagues in the audience. We're outnumbering you here, so do find one of them if you have any interest. My name is Joe Thomas. I'm currently President and CEO of Freedom Bank. We are about a mile away. We're 17 years old. We're about $500 million in total size. We trade on the over-the-counter market with a market cap of about $75 million. We are a bank focused on entrepreneurs, private real estate investors, and professionals across the D.C., Northern Virginia market. Prior to Freedom Bank, I have been in the banking and finance industry for 30-plus years, starting as a general management trainee out of undergrad at the University of Virginia. And as the banking industry evolved, my career evolved. I spent a chapter in the investment banking world advising financial services companies on M&A and capital raising. Subsequent to that, I relocated from Charlotte, North Carolina to Alexandria, where I started a private equity fund investing in community banks across the U.S. following the crisis. Many of the banks we acquired from the FDIC and receivership transactions. And out of that, I was CEO of a bank in Maryland, Bay Bank, that was sold in April of last year, and then recently joined Freedom Bank. So my career has been as a banker, an investment banker, a private equity investor, and now sort of a bank operator. So I've had my own experience in different careers, if you will. I think the most important resource I can bring to this group, though, is the daughter of a second year at the University of Virginia, and lots of conversations with her about her career interests. So happy to share that and delighted to be with you.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Ahmed Malik with Merrill Lynch. I'm a wealth management advisor, also a GMU alumni. So it's great to be here to talk amongst all of you folks here. So I've been with Merrill Lynch for 7+ years. I originally started in Merrill Lynch's training program. Our training program has been around since the 1940s. Merrill Lynch is a 100-year-old company. We currently have about 150+ advisors here in the Northern Virginia offices. We have offices in Tysons, Alexandria, Fredericksburg, Leesburg. We manage close to about $44 billion in assets here locally. And as a wealth management advisor, my role essentially is to help clients, whether it be small businesses or individuals, with their financial planning and wealth management needs. Those things can range anywhere across, tax planning, retirement planning, estate planning, asset management, and there's a full range of capabilities there. We're partnered with, obviously, Bank of America. So when it comes to resources, there's tremendous amount of resources that's available to us as financial advisors. Coming into the industry, I had absolutely no experience. I do have a degree in finance, but I will tell you that majority of what we do is client-facing. So having, personal skills and communication skills is very important. And so I guess we'll touch more on that as we go along here. But outside of my background, I helped my father build his business coming out of college, and background is completely different than some of your traditional folks that go into financial planning. So some more to come there. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Ghaffar Chowdhury. I'm a financial advisor and managing director at a financial planning firm in Bethesda, Maryland, called First Financial Group. We're a mid-sized financial planning firm based out of Bethesda. We have 7 offices across the Mid-Atlantic. We started in 1977, so we're a little over 40 years old now. Our focus over the years has been helping businesses and individuals that are in the high net worth arena. Most of my clients are medical professionals, legal professionals, and businesses that have over $5 million in revenue. I did not go to George Mason, unfortunately. I did grow up in Alexandria, Virginia, and have several friends that went to Mason over the years. So I've been on this campus many a times. I went to Virginia Tech for my undergrad and did my graduate at Georgetown University, and currently in D.C. So I've been around in this area for well over 30 years, and looking forward to speaking with you all today. Thanks.
All right, good morning. My name is Brock Walker. I began my career at the Department of Treasury, working in the shared services world, which basically provides a bunch of different programs to all the different bureaus of the Treasury and about 30 or 40 different federal agencies. So working to figure out strategies of how do we reduce cost to the agencies, cost to the Treasury, cost to the taxpayer, and how do we get different people with different priorities and different goals to work together to drop that cost and keep things going down, especially in this kind of a climate where costs continue to rise. There's new innovations, new technology. How do we make that picture clearer? So I did that for about 7 years, and then I've recently transitioned over to the FDIC. I've been there for about 2 years. I'm currently the special assistant to the deputy director, and we focus on asset marketing and management for banks that have failed and been closed. When the FDIC takes them over, our role is to get those assets back into the private sector as quickly as possible. And there's, I guess I didn't really set out to be in the world that I'm in. I was always kind of gravitated towards finance, but ended up doing a college competition when I was in Wisconsin, and they flew us out to D.C., met some people, networked, and ended up working at Treasury. So I'll talk a little bit about that in some of my responses, but just something to keep in mind of when we talk about what you're involved in. Sometimes it's just knowing people and getting to know people.
Good morning. My name is Molly Brewster, and my career started, actually I was a student at Virginia Tech, so I have an undergraduate degree in finance and my master's also from Virginia Tech. And I started out as a co-op with IBM, and at the time I was a business major, didn't know really what I wanted to do, and kind of was encouraged to go down the finance path. So that's how I kind of went down that path, because honestly I had no exposure to business growing up. I didn't really know much other than it kind of interested me. So that's kind of how I got started, and obviously encourage anybody that has the opportunity to do an internship to do that, as you're trying to make a decision of what to do. So I went through that through my college career, and then took a job with IBM coming out of that in their defense group, and stayed with that. Ended up getting sold a few times. The company I'm with today is Lockheed Martin, but I'm still at the same location where I started my original co-op, which at 18 I had no idea that's where I would land. So in terms of what I've done, the nice part about working for a company like this is a defense contractor, we build all kinds of things. for the government is that you can get involved in a lot of different types of projects and work in a lot of different organizations. So typically, and what I did was rotate through cost accounting, corporate finance, planning, pricing, costing, pretty much everything that exists in a corporation that falls under the umbrella of finance. I did as a analyst and then moved into management, and today I'm a senior manager actually of schedulers. So they actually, where we integrate cost and schedule together, they're really focused on working with the engineering team, the people doing the work, and trying to figure out, these sometimes billion-dollar projects, laying it all out by month, by cost, to try to figure out how we're going to deliver on time. So that's what I do today. Probably the most interesting for me, my favorite part of my career has actually been in working with college students. I started doing what's called the Financial Leadership Development Program Manager and the Mid-Career Development Program Manager. And so those were programs that are specifically designed of bringing people in and giving them rotational opportunities to find out, one, to prove that they have that leadership potential, but also to give them that exposure into other departments and rotation within the company. So anyway, I now have 38 years with Lockheed Martin, so I've been here a long time, know a lot of people, and I've enjoyed everything so far. So that's pretty much who I am.
Good morning. My name is Jason. Excuse me. My name is Jason Alley. I am a local Northern Virginia native, Woodson High School. I did not attend George Mason, but I did. I am also a fellow Hokie as well. My undergrad degree is in finance as well, with a concentration in global business. I started my career about 16 years ago in banking, something I never really thought I would actually kind of fell into, to be honest with you. And was recently recruited by City National Bank about a year ago to help build out the market here in the Washington, D.C. area. The bank is, you may or may not have heard of it, it's a West Coast bank, but this year it's its 65th year anniversary. And we are a bank based on entrepreneurs, their family, professional services, and our community. So I'm happy to be here today and looking forward to answering all your questions.
All right, thanks. So I've got, as a follow-up question to help the students, what are some of the topics and skills, et cetera, that you learned in your classes at school? Then we'll do the next round will be that you learned kind of outside your classes. But in your classes, in your education, that were the most valuable when you started in your job and that you find are the most valuable in your current position. So I was going to say, why don't we start with Gafar, and then I do all kinds of crazy rotations, and then we'll rotate this way.
There we go. Classes in my undergraduate, there was one particular class, it was in management. I think it was actually Intro to Management, where we had a capstone course, and we had to work in a group of, if I can remember, from 11 years ago, 5 or 6 people. And there was a lot of positive experiences that I took away from that because, first of all, you're interacting with these individuals throughout the entire semester for your capstone project. And just being able to collaborate with each other, making sure that everyone's voice was heard, and we're kind of, creating a presentation around everyone's, thoughts and ideas was really, at the time I didn't think much of it other than, hey, we got to get this project completed. But now in the professional world, being able to collaborate with a team like that, I'm face-to-face with staff, my team at my office, and also obviously clients. So being able to have those people skills and being able to kind of collaborate different ideas and put a presentation together, I think was a really important skill to take away from that experience.
So I think that I found that undergrad specifically, a lot of the technical skills have been important early in the career. As I've progressed in the career, it starts going into more of the soft skills. So where I started off knowing the econ, the financial management and the accounting specifically, and being able to demonstrate that was important to show that I understood what was going on. As the career has gone on, it's more of how do you work with people? How can you resolve conflict? And so a lot of the softer side, the less technical skills, and I think that kind of points to, as you're interested in finance, making sure that you are still looking at things outside of finance if you want to move up and be able to deal with some of those non-technical issues.
Okay, so I don't want to repeat what everybody else said, but I swear I think that the group project type activities, as painful as they can be, because I think everybody's had that experience where you've been in a group where it's just like, oh my God, just to get through it is what you're hoping for, or you have people that don't show up or they aren't carrying their weight. You're going to find that in the real world. So I do think it's those soft skills that you learn. I say soft skills that's also applied. So you're applying something that you're learning in a class. So to me, that's a key to success, is if you can help pull along other people, find those people sometimes that are outside of the group that are actually assigned to a team, whatever it is, but that is those soft skills that are hugely important. So that ability to communicate clearly, deadlines. So even sending email notes where you're asking people for information, it's that clear notification of when things are due, what you're looking for, or how you can help. So I think even though that's not exactly academic, it's that application of what you learned. I mean, when you first asked the question, like there were immediate things that came to mind about, learning about the balance sheet, specific activities that happened in my career that I was really glad that I had that background. Obviously, without that background, I would have struggled to have been able to move forward. But where it really made the difference is having that ability to communicate and really work well with other people, and even have that ability to empathize with people that are struggling and how to bring them along. And you learn a lot of those things. Like I said, I can remember being in group projects and hating when I had a group project assignment sometimes, and rather just have the straight academic work. But it applies. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for me too.
Thank you, Molly. So I would say in my career, I'd like to piggyback on Molly's answer a little bit as well. So with a finance degree for undergrad, I would say in my industry with commercial banking, there's a lot of lending that is incorporated into the job description, as well as corporate advisory, treasury management, cash management services, things of that sort. So I would say it's not necessarily, for me, it wouldn't be the technical analysis so much as more as, I would say, the most valuable, and something I probably wish I had paid a little bit more attention to in college would be the accounting portion, so I could understand the patterns a little bit better, which is something I've learned over the years, but not something I focused on in college. It's more of a corporate finance type of approach. So I would say the group projects is part of the networking and the people ability to relate to people and speak to people. I think you learn a lot of that from the group projects and the study groups that you do. But most important, I would say, being able to identify the patterns when you see a balance sheet, income statement, things of that sort. And that helps really to understand organizations, companies, and structures of debt as well.
Whichever one of you guys wants to go next, and whichever one of you wants to close.
Yeah, so I would say two things, technical and soft skills. For the technical side, I think, with Professor Canterbury, she used to beat us to death with those Excel spreadsheets. I mean, she was very detailed. We spent hours and days and weeks just going through those Excel spreadsheets, knowing how to, research companies and go through analyst reports and all that stuff. So that was really helpful from a technical side. From a soft skill, I would say a communication class, public speaking, I think was a big deal. There was a lot of folks that started in that class that was, they were very shy in the first couple weeks, but at the end of that course, I mean, everyone really built up their confidence level because everyone hates public speaking, right? I mean, no one really likes to get in front of an audience and talk. And I think coming out of school and coming out of college and, having that skill set as a public speaker is definitely going to propel you in your career, wherever it is that you want to do. Doing that first interview, talking to clients, right, just communicating and articulating your value is a huge leg up in any career field. So,
I might close with maybe a slightly different approach here. I went to UVA undergrad, and I was an environmental science major. I grew up on a farm, always loved the environment, and committed my passion to undergrad there. What I took from that's applicable to my career now is, one, I learned how to learn. And that's the most important skill that I think one can have. The world has changed so much over the course of my career and continues to change that every day I come to work with a curiosity and a desire to figure things out and learn more. And you're in an environment with professors and talented students that you can challenge each other. Learn how to learn while you're here. Secondly, the environmental science and the science training provided me an analytical framework to analyze problems, seek answers, whether it's challenges or opportunities, and having a bit more of an analytical frame of mind, is, I think, helps you get to the essence of problems and make complex problems simpler to understand. And oftentimes I go back to principal laws of nature are often at the core of diagnosing complex problems. And lastly, I took away from my undergrad experience the ability to write. It is, yes, communicating with people and speaking to people is important, but be able to be an efficient and effective writer is a critical skill. Whether it's sending a letter to an employer, whether it's communicating to a client, whether it's trying to get strategy in the minds and hearts of your employees, being an effective writer is an important skill. And I think at this university you have an opportunity to continue to hone that characteristic.
Thanks. I just want to add on to one of the things Joe said about thinking about things from an analytical perspective. I know in the class I teach, I emphasize it all the time, but I think it comes up in a lot of classes, is there's a strong desire for a lot of students to want to focus on memorization. And so you really want to take a step back to develop an understanding of what's going on here and how do the pieces fit together, because once you have that skill, then it can fit into all other kinds of areas that show up in school and your professional life. So I thought that was, I could relate to a lot of them, but that was one I know I emphasize a lot to my students. I like to jump around a little bit. So the next question is, what are some of the kinds of things that when you're interviewing a job applicant that really stand out as things like, wow, I'm really impressed, and also some of the mistakes that you've seen applicants make? So kind of a little bit of a how-to and a how-not-to lesson for the students here. And why don't I guess we'll just start with Joe and work our way down.
Okay. Characteristics that I think I would look for, or we would look for as an organization, I would start with passion. Finding the person who has the energy and the conviction and the passion to be successful will ultimately overcome whatever, we all have limitations. You'll be able to overcome those, or challenges that you'll face, you'll be able to power through, tunnel under, climb over, figure out how to get to the other side. And it, starts with this passion that you have. I would say, errors or things not gone well. We always like to see the applicant come to the discussion with a series of thoughtful questions to take a discussion to the next level, to challenge, what we may be saying is the environment at the bank, to query someone about what additional experience you can get. So in any interview you have, the listening skills is equally important as the speaking skills. And as you wrap up an interview, always have some thoughtful questions that cement the fact that you are engaged and that you're curious and going to have that passion on the job.
Yeah, I think Joe hit it right on the head, right? Asking thoughtful questions about the company, about the strategy, some of the things that you may not find when you're researching the company. The other thing that is important, I think, is when you're interviewing for a position, make sure you fully understand what that position is about, right? Do some research, pick up the phone, call some other people that are in the industry or have that same role, and ask them about their day-to-day tasks. And so going into the interview, you'll have sort of a better understanding of what it is that you're getting involved in. We interview candidates all the time that sort of come to the table and they sort of they don't ask a lot of questions, but the folks that do, we're more eager to take them to the next step because we get the sense that they're going to roll their sleeves up and get to work. So.
Yeah, I would definitely echo what my two panelists to my left here have mentioned. We are, as a firm, for us, culture is incredibly important. So when I'm hiring, when the other managing directors in the office are looking at candidates, we are really looking at, are they going to be a good fit to our culture, right? We're a very family-oriented culture, even though we have 7 offices at this stage. We're close-knit. Everyone's very open and accepting to helping others. Even though most of the advisors have their own practices, we try to collaborate as often as we can, as much as we can. And we have various specialists in different practice areas that can certainly lend a hand whenever needed. The other thing I'd say is that individual a people-oriented person? If you're someone that's more of an analytic, likes to be behind the scenes, doing the portfolio analysis and putting recommendations together, that's totally fine. But that might not be a great fit for a financial planner, financial advisor role, right? Because most of the time, what I'm doing is I'm in front of clients, right? I'm either talking to strategic partners or I'm in front of clients. So listening skills, to echo again what's being said, is incredibly important. And I'm a coach to my clients, so we want to make sure that we're kind of creating a pathway for them that's going to be able to be followed, and it's going to be a pathway to success. So you have to have those listening and conversational skills.
So I'll definitely echo on the passionate portion that we brought up a lot. I used to hire a lot of interns when I was with the Treasury, and that was the number one thing we looked for is, are you excited about what you're learning, excited to learn, excited about what you might be coming to work to do? And if you can't demonstrate that in the interview, it's probably not going to happen once you get in the building. So that's our number one thing that we would look at, and it's just so important. The other is flexibility. How well will you work with other people? How will you deal with adversity? Can you roll with things? If plans have to change, how adept can you be at being nimble and flexible in those areas? And I think the part to avoid is you want to be curious. So don't show that you aren't interested in new things. Come prepared. Be willing to ask questions. Find out if it's a good fit for you. When we're doing the interviews, it's not only is this person a good fit for us, do you as the interviewee find it a good fit for what you want and what you need? And it's just as much of an interview on your side. So use that as an opportunity to be curious and ask the questions from the technical standpoint of how does the job work, but also the culture. Is this a kind of place you want to come to work for? And I think that type of curiosity is something that, at least that I look for, and it's something to avoid if you're not in that world.
So I've interviewed lots of people, and I echo a lot of what's already been said. I mean, that energy coming in and being interested is obviously a key thing. Every person picks up on that, so you connect with your interviewer. And the thing about thoughtful questions, the key on that is thoughtful. So I've had people, I don't want people coming in not knowing what Lockheed Martin is. Obviously, hopefully you took the time to just, click in there and read a few things about it. I've had people come in and ask questions that are just so detailed about, what's going on with the Lockheed Martin stock, what's going on with certain decisions that CEOs made. A lot of times it puts me on the spot, and it's like, it really isn't necessarily relevant to anything at all other than you have your whole list of questions there. So when you do come up with your questions, really do make them thoughtful in terms of, again, whether this is a fit for you, because ultimately that's the most important thing to me, is whether you're going to be happy in this job, because I don't want anybody, coming in, no matter how fantastic they are, if ultimately they're going to leave. So I want it to be a fit for both you and for us. So I think that's really key. And so another part of that is that honesty. during an interview, realize that your interviewer can typically tell if you're kind of faking your way through or if you're not really being genuine and honest. And to me, that's an absolute key part of it, is that I want to feel that, feel that connection and feel that honesty and feel that genuine curiosity about what we do or how you would fit in there. Again, I think asking those questions about the culture is really important. And if you are very much an analytical type person, again, being honest about that during the interview, where you don't want to be on the forefront where you are interfacing with customers, that wouldn't be a successful matchup for you. So typically when I'm interviewing, it's not for one specific type of person. So it's really important for me to figure out where the right fit would be for you within the finance organization at Lockheed. It's not like we just have one job that we're typically hiring for. So even on an internship, it's matching you up with that right group that fits your personality. So, but again, that energy level. If somebody comes in, doesn't ask any questions, gives really, really short answers, and we're pretty much done in 10 minutes, it's very unlikely that you'd be selected. So, try to think ahead of time, too. One of the things that helped me a lot, because I have to interview for jobs within my own company, is really taking the time to think through stories that you want to relay. And so if there's things that you've done that you're really proud of or that you think show that initiative that you have, think through and practice telling yourself those stories of how you would relay that. Because when you get in that situation where someone asks a question and you know what you want to relay, you can tell it in a way that connects with them. Sometimes we'll blurt it out really fast, we're done in just less than a minute, and you really didn't tell it in a way that connected with your audience, I'll call it. So taking that time, I think, to practice is really important.
So I think Molly and Brock addresses these three different components that I have very well. So I'll try to kind of reiterate some of that in a different format. City National Bank is a very high-touch organization. So we're very customer-oriented. So I would say for us, we're expanding this market. So one of I would say the top priority for us when interviewing candidates is culture. So not only are we a good fit for you, but would you be a good fit for our team, as well as the high-touch service we do provide, because the culture aspect is paramount for the bank. So I would say during the interview process, if you can demonstrate your ability to be able to kind of mend within the culture that the bank is kind of presenting to you during that process, I would say that's probably the number one thing that we are looking for currently. With that, I would say people skills, the ability to not only speak to your team and communicate, but also to the clientele. We want to make sure that you do have not only the ability to be involved in the community and to kind of network in that capacity, but also to be able to provide the type of service that we're looking for. So I'd say people skills and culture are probably the top two priorities that we'd be looking for. And then I would say the third, which is just as important, would be outside of the box thinking, because a lot of what we do is not just what you might view as your traditional banking, but more in an advisory capacity. So I mentioned before, patterns is something that I learned in college that I thought was very, very important in my career trajectory. To be able to look at a company and to be able to see what's good, what's not good, that their CFO may or may not even have noticed is a valuable soft skill, if you will. Is also very important. So during the interview process, if you can demonstrate that you have the ability and capability to be able to think outside of the box, I think that would be a value add as well.
Great, thanks. One thing I'll add is a lot of the answers talked about coming in and showing a passion and an interest, and I would definitely encourage you to develop those skills by showing the same kind of passion and interest that you anticipate showing at work, showing in the classroom. I know I see some of the students out there that I've had before, and I'll say you guys have. I've interacted with the people here who I recognize in a way that would convey that very effectively, and I wish more students brought that level of enthusiasm. So pay attention, ask questions, talk to your professors, and you'll develop those kinds of skills. So when you go in and you talk to these folks for job interviews, you're not remembering, they told me I need to do this. It's something that actually comes quite naturally to you because it's something that's a part of who you are. So I'll ask a question now that's about our panel. What do you find most rewarding about your job? What do you love most about your job? And we'll start with Brock. and then we'll go this way, and then we'll flip back to Joe, and then we'll end with Gafar. So what do you love about your job?
So for me, I love challenges. I've always been one that gravitates towards puzzles, and because of the nature of my job, I'm not doing the same thing every day, which is something that I looked for when I took the position. So I don't have a set routine. I make my own schedule, even though I'm supporting my boss and doing a lot of personal projects that I think are moving the organization forward. So what's fun about it is taking some of the things that I mentioned earlier. How do I get people who don't want to work with me on something because they're busy doing their own stuff, and this is, my pet project? How can I make them want to do it? What's in it for them? What's the goal? And how is it going to make their lives better in the future? So being able to communicate that vision and build alliances across an organization when I have no formal power, it's just an interesting set of dynamics that I really enjoy because there is no set formula. So you can go back and leverage things that you've learned from a technical perspective, but also using things like psychology, sociology, sometimes even sciences. Like, it doesn't really matter what the issue is. If you can draw from things that you're knowledgeable on and put it together, when you're successful, it's awesome, and it really is a fun moment. So that's the big thing for me.
So for me, without a question, I think the part of my career that I've enjoyed the most has been basically working with college students. So bringing in interns, bringing in new hires, and I started working with what we have called the Financial Leadership Development Program. And across Lockheed Martin, which is about 100,000 people, we have a relatively small group of people that are in the Financial Leadership Development Program. And typically they come right out of college. We hire them in, and then they get to rotate through different assignments. And it's been really interesting. One is just the selection of the people in the first place, but then even once they get out of the program, is continuing to mentor people. So I have several people that I mentor, and again, that's my favorite part of my job. I really enjoy seeing other people successful. And, I look at some of my peers now that are senior managers that have been with the company a relatively short period of time, at least in my time frame, are people that I brought in through that program and have watched them excel. So, and I say watch, I mean, really it's great to be, called upon, and people are looking for your advice. And a lot of it sometimes is connecting people and helping them, get a connection with the right person that's going to help them either have that discussion or potentially even hire them into another role. So without a question, for me, up until really the first 15 years of my career, it was purely analytical. I didn't do any type of leadership. It was all, it was rewarding in its own way, but it wasn't until I stepped into doing what I'll call more leadership types of things that I really found it personally satisfying.
So I would say for me, it's working with people. So as a banker, you'd probably think that financial analysis, things of that sort, would probably be my forte or kind of my day-to-day job. But it's really working with people and helping those people. So I have the unique opportunity to be able to work with entrepreneurs. So folks that either own a business, want to start a business, or maybe even their second ownership opportunity. So for me, being able to engage with those folks from the very beginning or even in mid-cycle is probably the most rewarding thing for me. So for example, I've worked with quite a few folks in the medical industry, and they may have had a tenure of being a doctor, a veterinarian, something of that sort for 5-10 years or so, and want to kind of take the next step. They might want to start a medical practice or buy a different one. For me to go from start to finish, helping them consult and educate them on the process and work all the way through from whether it be funding to build-outs to things of that sort, going to the opening and doing the ribbon cutting with someone like that with their first business opening is probably the most rewarding thing I could possibly imagine. So I would say working with people is probably my most rewarding part of my job.
I would describe my best day, which makes me the most excited to be at Freedom Bank, is pitching and winning business from our clients. And why do I say that? That's the opportunity to go call on one of our entrepreneurs and understand their business, their goals, and help them be successful. which is the rewarding part of working for a community bank. Secondly, back to this analytical part, understanding maybe the issue from a different perspective and offering advice and direction that may be unique that would help them be successful. Thirdly, typically I'm doing that with one of my colleagues. Recent example, Darren Tully here and I went and called on an early stage technology company that was leaking money for a reason we couldn't understand, and we spent the day with them. I got to know Darren a little bit more and collaborated with him in helping one of our clients. So it helps me better understand our own team in serving that client. In that process, I'm a competitive guy. I want to win. I want to get that business, and the manifestation of those efforts in success leads to making money for our company. And that's an important part of the scorecard is, are we creating shareholder value? So the opportunity to work with a colleague, solve a client issue, and make money for the company is a great day.
I'm with you there, Joe. Getting new clients is exciting, right? It is a competitive business. And also with that, I think a lot of what we do as advisors is we're kind of like financial therapists. Because when you're dealing with clients and their money, that things get emotional, right? They have a lot of debt. They're not on track for retirement. Their asset allocation's out of whack. So we're also kind of like the financial chiropractors. We got to get them realigned so that they're on track. Either they're too conservative, and it's not just a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process. Every 6 months, every year, you're meeting with these families. You're helping them with their needs. And I think the most inspiring thing is seeing them actually achieving success and knowing that you were a part of that, right? And the fact that you were the person that actually helped them get from point A to point B. And from that comes more referrals, more opportunities, and just, your clients eventually become like family, if you will, right? You're talking to them on an ongoing basis and deepening those relationships. Our business model is basically if our clients grow, so do we, and we want to continue that. And so it is an exciting business, and it's rewarding.
This question often makes me think about a book by Simon Sinek. It's called Start With Why. It's a book that I've read probably 5 times throughout my career. Highly recommend it. It just encourages you to think about why you're doing what you're doing, right? So my why in terms of, why I do what I do and what ultimately, I think is the foundation of my passion is seeing clients go through that life cycle, right? Most of the time, I'd say probably 75% of the time, I'm interacting with clients in their early stages of their career, whether they're starting their own medical practice, law practice, or starting their new business. So, they tend to be, somewhat vulnerable. At the same time, they really rely on your advice and guidance. And I love seeing a client go through that life cycle where they kind of started their career, then they get married or buy property or have a family, and then ultimately, get to enjoy the success of, growing their business or just being a successful professional. That's rewarding, and those invitations that you get to a kid's birthday party or a housewarming, and helping them plan for their dream vacation and ultimately seeing pictures of that vacation that they took and getting an email saying, hey, thank you for helping us plan for this or save for this. We had a really good time. I think that's what really gets me up in the morning. And then on the flip side with, growing our firm and working with other advisors, similarly seeing their success, right? Having an advisor say, hey, that was a really good, meeting that we had together. Thank you for, that feedback. That really, gets me going as a leader and wants, to have that person succeed, right? So I really enjoy that component of the industry. And, I think if my parents had it their way, I'd be a doctor. And quite frankly, the very sight of blood, that's not mine, I'm out. Right, so this is my way of helping people, in a broad spectrum in various ways.
Great. Thanks for those answers. They were I think, really honest and very informative for the students. So hopefully you guys can be as honest with this next question. What career mistake has given you the biggest lesson? So basically, what mistake have you learned, or what mistake have you made in your career, and what lesson have you taken from it? And let's just kind of reverse it and start with Gafar and work our way here, and then swing back here. And
So what mistake have I made in my career? I think I've lost count at this point. The most notable mistake was, so this is my third firm. I've been in the industry for 11 years. I've been at First Financial Group. This is my 8th year. And knock on wood, I think this is going to be my firm for the foreseeable future. But when I first started in the industry, I spent 2.5 years at a firm right out of college. And then, honestly, after finishing my graduate program, I kind of put my resume out there, and just to kind of see what was out there, not necessarily because I wanted to move. Things were actually going really well at my original firm, and I was, contacted by several headhunters and took this opportunity in Fairfax, Virginia, to work for a small financial planning firm that wanted me to come in and kind of grow their office in Fairfax. I was 26 years old at the time. I was infatuated by the dollar signs that they kind of put in front of me. So mistake number one. And I spent 13 months trying to build something that, at the time I had no passion for, right? They wanted me to do a lot of the administrative-oriented building your office kind of thing, if that makes any sense. And that wasn't my wheelhouse, and that's not my expertise. I enjoyed being face-to-face with clients. I really enjoyed planning. And over time, I've developed a passion for leadership and growth and development, which I'm much more better suited to be in that role now, several years later. But that was definitely a mistake when I look back at my career that I made. I followed the money instead of following the opportunity, where, lesson was learned.
Tough question. Well, my compliance manager's here. Maybe he can shed some light on some mistakes that I've made, Charles. So I would say if you're starting out your career early, right, don't sell yourself short, right, in terms of what Jafar just said. Don't try to, jump for an opportunity because the money's greater. It might seem great, but, maybe that's not where your heart is. Look at areas where, if from a compensation standpoint, if it's less pay but more opportunity down the road, you definitely want to be in the line of work where your heart is, right? You want to get up in the morning and do what you love, right? So I would say, when you're looking at career opportunities, do things that you feel good doing, and work with people that you enjoy working with. Is what I think that would be my feedback.
I guess my most honest answer is I don't have a seminal event in my career that I look back on and regret. And I guess it's a bit of a, not that I haven't done things that I would like to do differently, but I've always tried to have the attitude of, fail fast, fail forward, and worry less about what happened in the past and worry more about what's coming next. Back to this analogy of growing up on a farm. My son just wrote his college essay, and it was named. His essay started "Next Hay Bale," and he spent the summer in the top of a hay barn with these hay bales coming up the elevator, and all he could do was focus on the next one that came. Because if you worry about something you did wrong or something that you're wasted effort in worrying about that. So look forward, do your best. Recognize you're going to fail, you're going to make some bad decisions, but each one of those is going to be a brick upon which you're going to build a successful career, and just stay focused on looking forward.
So I would say my biggest mistake probably was coming right out of college. I don't think I did enough research as to what position I was entering into. So I had an opportunity which was presented to me to be able to work with clients and to be able to help people like I love to do. But after taking the position, what I did not know was the actual tasks that were given to me, some of which would have been debt collection, debt structures, things of that sort. Things that at the time I just didn't think was fair. So I would say that not doing enough research, understanding where I was going, what I was going to be doing, was a pretty big mistake at that point. Now, I did spend about a year in that position, but with that being a mistake, I have to also say that probably was one of the biggest learning experiences for me, and also helped me to progress in my career trajectory, because it helped me to learn what I don't want to do in order to decide what I do want to do. And that's how I think, because of that, that was probably the biggest life learning experience for me, and I think that's really how I got to where I am today. So I would say do the research when you have that first opportunity.
So literally a week ago today, I had one of my managers call me and tell me that she'd made a huge mistake, and it was a big one. It was a personnel-related type of thing, and my advice to her was very much like what Joe said: is everybody makes mistakes. That's just part of life. But it's really what you do with that. So it's how you move forward. And I saw her again later in the week, and again, she apologized, and it's like, no apology necessary. You handled it beautifully. Everything went forward the way it needed to. So again, it's about how you move forward from mistakes, because small mistakes happen. In terms of career mistake, again, there's nothing specific that I can think of going back that I consider a major career decision that I would have done differently, other than I would say to not be afraid. So there's opportunities out there. You're never 100% ready for that next opportunity. It's believe in yourself. It kind of goes back to the very beginning of what we were talking about having that learning mindset. It's taken me a long time to realize there's nobody around me that's really any smarter than I am or more capable than I am. They may have different experiences, or they may be able to project themselves in a different way. But in terms of being able to learn something and being able to do something, even though you may not have that full experience and that full knowledge of what to do, you know how to learn and how to do it. So if you have people around you that believe in you, go for it, and don't hold yourself back. I think holding yourself back is probably the one area that I would advise my younger self to not do.
So similar to what Joe was mentioning earlier, I don't have a specific seminal event that I can call on yet, although there's a lot of time to have a better answer in the future. We all fail every day at something, and I'm no exception. There's always things that I'm trying to learn from and do better. And so the thing that I try to focus on, and I guess my biggest recommendation for this question would be surround yourself with people you trust. And as you go through your career and you know that you can count on someone, literally that you feel like you can bet your life on somebody, those are the people you want to surround yourself with, so that when you get sucked into your world and your work, that they can help pull you back. And in my case, I'm known as being pretty hard charging, and when I get on something, it's kind of 110% go. And so the people that I've surrounded myself with know that I depend on them, and that I would do the same for them, and they've helped pull me back, tell me when to reset and when I need to slow down or when I've lost people. And so make sure that you build that network, build those relationships for the people, because it's a long race. It's not a sprint. You will have a lot of opportunities to do things in your life and in your career. If you can develop those relationships with people who can be candid in their assessments of what's going on, it will help you avoid a lot of mistakes in the future. So find those people and hold on to them, because they're going to be your biggest allies moving forward.
Great, thanks. Before I go ahead and ask any questions, do any of you guys have any questions that you want to ask the panelists? So the question was about getting into financial advising and what the panel thought as far as that as a career path for someone coming out of school.
Sure. So just to make sure I understand your question, so you want to know whether or not you should get into it right out of college, or do something first and then get into financial advising later? Okay. I think it's really dependent on what firm you end up aligning yourself with. Some firms, I can say from experience, they don't really do very well with brand new people coming out of college, right? So, selecting the right firm, I think, is step one for you. From experience, I would say it certainly doesn't hurt to have professional experience before you got into financial planning, maybe as a second or third job. That will never be a deterrent because you just have easier rapport in terms of your professional experience. But there are firms out there where they're looking for people just like you coming right out of college that they would love to have, as a brand new advisor that they can mentor, coach, develop. Sometimes, it's very difficult to unteach something that you all have already been taught, right? So, our model at our firm, I'll speak on, First Financial Group's behalf, is we want to coach you, mentor you, develop you in, the process that we have, right? If you have learned different things from different careers, that's great. I think that makes you a better professional, but not necessarily how we do things, if that makes sense. Yeah.
And just to piggyback on that, so for folks that don't know what robo-advising means, basically it's a computer algorithm that manages your money. Typically what we see, because we also have a platform, it's not technically a robot, it is they do use an algorithm, but it's executed by actual humans. So that space fits a need for new investors that are coming into the investment field in terms of the retirement accounts or small brokerage accounts. Typically, the starting value is about $5,000. What we see is that I guess take a step back. What we do as financial advisors, about 20 to 30% of what we do is actually asset management. Right? There's also tax planning. There's estate planning. There's retirement planning. So there's other aspects outside of just trading a portfolio, and that's all that robo-advising does. We have that platform where we can refer clients to that platform, and we still get compensated in terms of referring that line of business to that robo-advising division, right? So they're still our client, right? They might have a portion of their money in a robo-based platform, and they also have assets with us that we're managing. But what we're starting to see is clients that are nearing the $10 million space where they need estate planning. I just onboarded a client 2 weeks ago, called me out of the blue from Charles Schwab. He's got $10 million in a robo platform, but he had to get kidney transplants. So now he's worried about what happens to my money, what happens to my children, who inherits what, and he has no one to sit and speak to. So going back to being a financial therapist, right, you need to sit down, plan with them, build out their estate plan, because if he starts pushing over 10 million, he's falling into an estate tax issue. So when you're working with high net worth individuals, they're looking for someone that really understands their complex needs and situations. Folks that technically don't have a lot of money are probably leaning more towards the robo side of the business. So to answer your question, if you want to make a lot of money, focus on people that have a lot of money, right? And by the way, don't turn folks away that want to do the robo business, because you can still refer them to that line of the business depending on the company that you work with. So I guess the short answer is you can do it all.
So Ahmed just actually made me think of something. Another opportunity that you might want to look at is joining a group of advisors as an associate advisor. That way you're learning from those senior advisors and going on meetings with them and interacting with clients, but not necessarily building your own book of business just quite yet, because you're kind of green, if you will. So that could be another fruitful opportunity for you, something I wish I personally did when I was getting into this industry. So I think that's become another popular avenue for a lot of young graduates, joining a producer group.
Yeah, that was a great question, because I know there's students who want to get into that field, and it strikes me as a really hard one to get into if you're like 21 or 22, that in general a lot of people aren't going to trust you with their money, and you don't really necessarily know what you would do with it anyway. So learning and talking to people and figuring out what's like a really good place for me to enter in this industry, I think that was a really good question.
Good morning, everyone. Finishing first year in the MBA program right now. One of the big decisions to make in the second year is whether you should pursue a data analytics certification, or whether your electives, which would take up both your electives, or whether you pursue maybe more your passions, right? Negotiations, leadership, Obviously, we understand the return on investment in getting that certification, puts you one step above your competition. But you guys seem to be talking a lot about the gaps between soft skills and technical skills. From your end, looking at applicants, looking at your organization, where the gaps are at, do you find that you would need somebody who took a route where you were learning more of these soft skills, or would you be looking highly right now in the age of big data for somebody that's going and gotten that certification?
So the question was for someone entering their last year, trying to figure out what courses to take, would potential employers value more an emphasis on some of the marketing management, developing of some of the what are referred to as soft skills, or an emphasis on some data analytics type of classes to develop some of those skills? And I think the students trying to make a decision and wants the panel's assessment of those kinds of issues.
If I can start, I did the MBA program at George Mason, graduated in 2014, so I'm fairly recent. They didn't have the data analytics program when I went through it, and if they had, I would have taken it. It's a huge field. It's a growing field. It certainly will not be a negative to have a background in it, but if you can intersperse, things that you're passionate about as well, it's always beneficial. When I went through it, I focused on like leadership and a lot of the soft skill pieces, because I'd also studied some of the technical stuff in undergrad. So for me, it wasn't as much a necessity. So depending on your background, it might be something to look into, but it can get you a lot of opportunities just in the way that market's shaping up. And I'd be happy to chat with you afterwards if you have other questions.
I can answer the question without any specific knowledge of the certification or what the other alternatives are, but I think we are in a world where differentiating yourself in some of these technical skills is increasingly important. And if you have that opportunity in front of you, I think it's somewhat path dependent on what field you want to go in and what are the requirements in that field. Each of us would probably have a slightly different answer of how critical is it to work for our company. But my instinct is that everything about what a bank does is becoming increasingly based on data, technology, digitization, and having a more fundamental awareness and fluency in that world can only be beneficial to you. So you can be part of the company that's then evolving to embrace the landscape of technology as it makes data analysis more fundamental part of every business model.
I think part of it is the fear of missing out, right? I mean, it sounds to me like your heart is more on the management side, and you're hearing about data analytics and blockchain, and you're kind of saying, well, wait a minute, I don't want to miss the train. But it really depends on, again, going to what Joe just said, what line of field that you want to get into, right? As financial advisors, I mean, does it help knowing data analytics? Probably not, right? We have a division of analysts that are CFAs and analysts. I mean, their job is not client facing. They're not sitting in front of clients. They're behind a Bloomberg station. They're trading portfolios. They're just crunching numbers all day long. If that's what you want to do, and you want to get into that field, and you're kind of intrigued about doing data analytics, then yeah, absolutely, I would tell you to go that route. But if you want to be client facing, working with individuals, families, and businesses, it's not really going to help you as much. I think the soft skills is where you're going to excel in that space. So try to identify what it is that you want to do. We have, with Bank of America, we have a huge team of data analytics folks. And when it comes to cybersecurity, that's a huge thing for a lot of financial institutions. We have a zero budget when it comes to cybersecurity. We spend literally billions of dollars just to protect clients' assets. And it's a huge growing sector, but it's not necessarily finance, it's IT, right? So I wouldn't be too worried about missing the train, right? It's more so of what it is that you want to do and just being great at what you do. Yeah.
And I'll just mention that, I think your question is really relevant because I think a lot of folks get tied up in where the industry is headed and what they should be doing, but not necessarily where their passion is. To kind of echo what everyone's saying on the panel, I would find that good mix of what you truly want to do in terms of your passion and the trajectory you want to go, and where the industry is headed. Right? I know that kind of sounds like a double-edged sword, but I would have conversations with your academic advisor, your professors, folks like us, that can give you any insights. It's not going to be an overnight process, as I'm sure you know. Hopefully that's helpful.
Any other student questions? So the question was two questions. One, what's your most interesting client? And in general, how do you go about winning over clients?
My most interesting client is a 4-star general in the Air Force, former general. He's close to his 90s, but you would think he's in his 70s. Real fit guy, him and his wife. A lot of great stories. And the way I landed that relationship was just basically focusing on their goals, right? The conversation was about, what's the most important thing for you outside of your money? And we started the conversation focusing around his children and grandchildren. And so the conversation moved from performance, right? It moved away from fees, and it was more so around their priorities. And we focused on just that conversation there. And then it led to several meetings. And he's a high net worth client. So that was a unique, interesting situation recently that I've had.
So I don't have traditional clients as some of the other panelists, but a lot of the work that I've done, it does the same basic concept. We need to work with somebody. And currently, I think the most interesting client is ourselves, of trying to figure out how we can work together. So within our agency, how do we coordinate to better prepare ourselves? And for what we do, it's preparing ourselves for the next financial crisis that we don't know what it will look like. And so how do we do that? And it's just it's partnering. We have to build trust. And as he's talking about here, building trust is putting aside some of the hard things of this is exactly what we want to do, and finding out a little bit about each other, trying to develop a relationship. What are your goals? Here's what my goals are. How can we work together? How can we partner? Finding that common ground. So even though it's not the traditional sense, I think, of what you're asking, that's the way that I would focus on it.
I would add maybe a little different answer. The most interesting client that we have is the one that I met yesterday. And the reason I say that is because that's the one that I focused on and made it the most important thing that I'm spending my energy on, to try to understand their issue and opportunity and bring a genuine passion and entrepreneurial skill to help them be successful. Now at Freedom Bank, we have different industry groups. So we have clients in the government contracting field, professional, Vishal Gandhi runs that practice for us, the professional practice finance for insurance agent, Ed Lull runs that practice. We have lawyers, dentists, doctors, title companies. Jim Nelson is here. He runs that practice. We also have people that are engaged in different regional markets across Northern Virginia. For example, Dan Marks is our Fairfax city executive. They would each have clients that either have a similar industry role, so that Community Bank of the Future is not geographic, but it's by industry type. And so if you understand the issues in their industry, you can be more relevant and more helpful, and therefore win, because they're going to say, hey, this person understands my business more than others, and they'll help me be successful. Or it may be geographically. The client has seen us support the local community. We are proximate to them. We're there when they need us. And, lastly, we happen to be headquartered locally, so they have access to all the decision makers, and they're more likely, if something goes bump in the night and it's an unexpected outcome, they can predict how the firm is going to respond. And the more they know the local decision makers, the more likely they will be to be successful in that. So those are some of the ingredients for how we're able to win clients.
I don't know, interesting is the best way to describe this client, but it's just been super fun and exciting to work with this particular client. someone I was introduced to about 6 months ago, 36 years old, government contracting firm that he started 2.5 years ago with a partner, and they are pretty much having overnight success. I mean, they're making money to where he's never been accustomed to this type of income, and the introduction was just so timely where he and his wife we've been meeting with for the last 4 months. We're helping them in all areas of personal financial planning to their investments, to their estate planning, to their potential sell of the business at some point in time, to their insurance planning, and now he's introduced us to the partner where we're now doing more big scale business planning. Right. So my favorite types of clients are clients where we're able to kind of be all hands on deck and utilizing all of our resources. And he just sent me an email over the weekend. He wants us to do the company retirement plan. Right. So those are the things that are happening throughout the course of 6 to 7 months that I don't think typically happens with the traditional client. So it's been super fun and really exciting to work with this client. Hopefully that answers your question.
So we'll go with one more question that I'll ask the panel to close out, and then after that we'll have opportunity for you guys to come and network with them and ask questions and talk on a one-on-one basis. So basically, we'll start with Jason, and then we'll work our way down. We can end with Joe, our sponsor for today. What one piece of advice do you have for the students? So kind of your opportunity to kind of give your closing statement, the one thing you want them to take away from this.
One piece of advice, I would say, again, people skills. Build your network, get to know the folks that you work with, your cohorts within your program. Community involvement is a fantastic opportunity, not only to build your own skill set, but also to get engaged with the community, to meet additional people. I think community involvement has probably been one of the best aspects of my career in general, not only for feel good for me, but also to be able to actually contribute. I've met some of my best friends through different organizations. I'm on different boards of directors, Leadership Fairfax program, things of that sort. I would say community involvement is probably the number one aspect. I would think that, and to continue to build those people skills. Do a lot of team projects. I would say that helps with your management skills. I think to address your question earlier, I think the soft skills is paramount in our industry to be able to communicate with folks and build those relationships. I know that when we look for additional folks to join our team, it's not always necessarily your technical skills, your credit skills, or accounting or finance degrees. It's more of kind of where have you been, what do you know, what have you done? How have you been a part of this community to be engaged and to be able to help the bank kind of build that rapport as well. So.
I think my piece of advice would be to not be afraid of what you don't know, and to be willing to dive into anything. So whatever that first job is that you get once you accept a job, so it's not about this moment, but once you have that job, be willing to dive into whatever opportunities there are. And the other part is if you don't have people that surround you that you feel like have your best interest, then maybe that's not the right place for you. You mentioned before is having those people around you that, it's not always good. There's bad days everywhere, no matter what job you have. But ultimately, if everybody around you kind of supports you in some way and you don't feel like there's just a negative overall relationship, then that's a good place to be. But if there is that negative part, don't be afraid to continue to move on and find the right people to work for.
So I have two, recommendations. The one is while you're here with the university, look for internship opportunities. Some of the questions have been on the kind of the theme of I'm not sure what this could look like, or I don't know what this position or role would be. Take advantage of that while you have the opportunity. It's a great chance to get an introduction into what a specific position or industry might look like, and it can turn into a full-time job. So it's a really safe way to do it, and a good chance to not only apply what you're learning, but to learn some real skills from the workplace that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get. Secondly, I'd say look for opportunities to talk to people in a mentorship role. If you identify someone with experience that you look up to or that you want to be like, how did they do that? Talk to them. you will be surprised. We like talking about what we're doing with people who are interested. And so if you reach out and say, hey, I'd really like to learn a little bit more about you, you will likely hear back. It's just, we get as much from it than you do. As you know, it's a beneficial, mutually beneficial relationship. So don't be afraid to do that. You never know what can come out of it, and you can actually expose yourself to a network from somebody who has been doing this for a long time. So just keep your eye out for both opportunities.
I think Brock nailed it right there with the word mentorship. I'm a byproduct of mentorship. I mentor, 5 people now as a part of my team that I'm helping grow. I would do it sooner rather than later, whether it's an internship, whether it's a full-time role that you're applying for. Partnered up with a senior professional that is willing to take you under their wing and you get along with, you have good rapport with, you have a good relationship with, someone that you can grab a drink with and kind of, get to know them, and also that would be an advocate in helping you succeed. I think a lot of us get so focused on being competitive and like doing what our peers are doing that we often, lose track or lose focus on where we're actually headed and how to get there. And a mentor can, often be that guidance or that hand-holding partner, if you will.
Going back to conversation about researching your industry and interviewing, just make sure you understand if you're going into a specific industry, do as much research as possible, and understand the different shifts that are happening in the industry, similar to your question about the robo-advisors and data analytics. But also research the geography and where you want to work, right? If you're going to be in this area, understand, right, the largest industry here is government contracting and IT, and if you're going to go into different parts of the country, make sure you understand those industries as well. Going back to getting a mentor, I've had great mentors in the past that was really monumental to my success. Make sure you're working on yourself, right? I'm a big believer in personal development. Read the right books. One of the best books that I've ever read was by Earl Nightingale. It's called Lead the Field. I believe it's an audiobook now. You can actually listen to it on YouTube. But personal development, I think, was one of the best things that have happened to me coming out of college, and I think focusing on that would be a great help.
Okay, I'm going to wrap it up here and use the sponsor's prerogative and give you three pieces of advice. The first one is, and when I walked in the room, I met students here, and there's a great diversity at George Mason. There are people that are commuting to campus from home. There are people from Beijing. My first piece of advice is enjoy the experience you're currently having, and don't lose sight of the fact that you have some great opportunities on this campus. Don't skip the party when you have the opportunity to go to one. Don't miss getting involved in a student-run organization to get the experience of doing something out of the classroom. Get that internship in the summer or nights and weekends, and take every ounce of this opportunity that's been given to you while you're a student, because it's critical, it's fleeting. I think each one of us would say our college years were some of our best years, and the friendships and the experiences out of the classroom defined who we are. Secondly, as it relates to the career path, you have plenty of time for this to unfold. Back to point number one. But the advice I would give you is try to select opportunities that create as broad a path going forward. Because let's face it, you don't know really what you want to do or where life might take you. But if you land an opportunity that has lots of potential future stepping stones, that analyst program at a large institution or a small institution like ours, where you're going to see tons of different types of client opportunities, lots of different things to examine and explore, that'll create things. You could work at a bank, you could go start your own company. So think about each step you take. Is it narrowing or broadening my future opportunities? And at this point in your life, I think you want to be broadening your opportunities to have as rich and successful a career as possible. And my last piece of advice would be you're the CEO of your own career. No one else has as big a vested interest, your parents, your faculty advisor, your mentor, than you in the success of your career. So unless you don't take the reins of that opportunity and work hard at it, it will not happen. The fact you're sitting in the room, I compliment you. You obviously are taking this seriously. But whatever happens, you're the architect and you're the champion of it, and good luck.
Thanks. So let's thank our panels. I thought it was a lot of interesting stuff. And now, as I said, we'll finish up with just an opportunity for some networking. So come on up and ask these folks questions and introduce yourself and, take advantage of this opportunity.
Thank you. Nice meeting you. Well done. When did you graduate from UVA? 1985.
Okay, I was 89.
Oh, you were?
Yeah. And it sounds like you have a senior in high school?
Yes, I have a sophomore at UVA.
Yeah.
Senior and a sophomore.
I have twin high school seniors.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. So we're going through the whole college thing too. Yeah.
Do you have any decisions?
One boy's going to Vanderbilt.
Oh, good.
The other one, he's been accepted to UVA, so there's a good chance he'll go there, and he's still waiting to hear from some other places. How about your son?
He's in UVA and possibly might wrestle in college.
Oh, really?
Williams, he got deferred.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Economic and proximity reasons.
Yeah. But I take it D1's just too much.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I have, George Mason's got a good wrestling program.
Yeah, one of my students who I'll see at 1:30, he's on the team there. Yeah.
I've seen him. We were at the national tournament.
Where does he go to high school?
He goes to a boarding school, Woodbury Forest.
Okay. I remember when I was at school seeing the sweatshirts.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But he's had a good year. Good luck with.
Yeah, you too. I hope to see you around. Yeah.
What do you teach?
Well, right now I'm teaching the intro finance, so I get to kind of meet all the students, which I like. I've done it for a long time, and so next year I'm going to start doing evaluation. Yeah. So that'll be fun because there'll be a technical aspect, but it'll be smaller classes. So I plan on really pushing the students to think on their feet and develop some of the those kinds of skills and storytelling, because they get bogged down in step, but why? Why is it important? Explain to someone who doesn't understand everything that's going on. Yeah.
Hello. Hi. Thank you.